like the Air Force and some other government groups. I think that some of these groups are also trying to put out really kind of crazy stories about UFOs in order to muck up everything else. Because a lot of people will take the opinion, well, if this stuff was fake, then it's all fake. And so we have to be really careful about those kinds of agendas being put out there with some of this really extraordinary type of evidence like these bodies.
Yeah, and what kind of concerns me is that Jimmy Mawson...
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jimmy Mawson, who happens to be a UFO researcher in Mexico, and he's a newscaster too. He's had a few hiccups on his UFO reports and stuff like that. So I'm just really hoping that this is not a fraud, because it's going to make the whole UFO community look bad if this is shown to be fake. I know that, like what Tim was talking about, they did the X-rays, which was impressive, but they did also too a 3D reconstruction, and they did DNA analysis. And I don't know if they released that yet, but I'm hoping something comes through on this, because when they had a congressional hearing here in the United States on UFOs, that's one of the things is they were asking, where's the evidence? Where's the bodies? Where's the crashed spaceships? But now we have Mexico doing the same thing. They have a congressional hearing, and they actually produce some evidence. So let the evidence, I hope and pray that the evidence is true to what it's supposed to be.
I agree with you, gentlemen, because this would kind of, like I'm saying, open the doors to another dimensions, and will also give a lot of respect to many researchers and people, just like two of you, my dear guests, the gentlemen that I really do respect and I admire a lot. I have, like I'm saying, both of your books. I'm born 1980, so for me, like, I'm entering in the field, and you guys been already in there digging and researching and giving us the knowledge and the wisdom that we are using today. And that's what's to me, really amazing, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to study and learn more. So I'm hoping, again, that this is going to bring us, new keys and open many good doors. And now when we're already talking about this, Mr. Swartz, you also, did work on one of my personally favorite programs, and those are Ancient Aliens. I didn't miss one episode. I took pen and paper, and sometimes, I met some of the wonderful people, including yourself, that work on, Discovery Channel. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How did you get involved, and really, what was maybe your favorite episode, or what did you like the most about it?
Well, for me, what happened is that the producers just contacted me out of the blue. I really wish I knew if there was somebody that recommended me to them, or if they just happened to, run across one of my books, or see some of my articles online. I really have no idea, and I didn't ask them because the people who actually go and search for talent for this show, for experts to talk, generally aren't then the people that you end up working with when the taping occurs. So even if I did ask them, they probably wouldn't have any idea how they came across me in the first place. But one of the things that they wanted me to talk about was Nikola Tesla, and of course, probably My first best-selling book was The Lost Journals of Nikola Tesla, and that book was published in 2000,
Oh, yes.
2001, and hasn't been out of print since that time. And we actually, in like 2014, actually released like a revised version of it, because in just a few years' time, this change and stuff that we were writing about, in the original version, had changed, and so we wanted to keep it up to date as much as we possibly could. But that was, and they also interviewed me about various other UFO studies, like UFOs associated with volcanism, UFOs seen around volcanoes at various locations on the planet, a place out in the Pacific called Nan Madol, I think it's how it's pronounced, which is one of these extremely ancient structures where on this very small Pacific island, where they use like these balsate columns to create these absolutely fantastic structures, though nobody really knows exactly how they did it, because the population has always been extremely small on this island, or why they did it. Some of the research that I did on the subject indicates that in its heyday, these structures, due to the type of volcanic rock that was being used to build them, may have had a very strong electromagnetic signature that had the ability to steer tropical storms around that area, because the islands associated with this structure were used as like plantations to feed some of the other islands. So maintaining integrity of these plantations of various things like palm fruits, yams, things like that was crucial. And that area, one tropical storm could wipe it out completely, and so you'd have an entire population associated with this small civilization that would be devastated then without their basic foods. So there was the possibility that whether from their own lost knowledge or from the help from the ancient gods, as they always put it, or in the terms of the show, ancient aliens, they were given this knowledge.
Yes.
But as time goes by, this sort of electromagnetism tends to ebb, so we no longer see the same types of effects that it may have previously had. More recent research shows that it's extremely diminished, though it does show, especially in some of the ancient wood that was found combined within these structures, within the tree rings, as they were growing on this island, that there was a significant difference in the localized electromagnetic field. So that's an extremely good possibility that this area was produced in an attempt really for local weather modification. Very fascinating story. And that also kind of leads into the whole Nikola Tesla thing, because some of the research that Tesla was doing at one point in his life, and Nikola Tesla was the type of guy that he would be working on one thing, and then he'd get an idea for something else, and then he'd run off and start working on that. And all of his life, he was working on a multitude of different things at the same time. One of them was was attempts to see if weather could be modified by using radio frequency. And so there was a possibility that Tesla was kind of honing in on some of these ideas that may have been around as far back as 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 BCE. So it's fascinating to consider that we're not the only technological race that has arisen on this planet. We kind of have this conceit that we're the only ones who have developed, high impact science. And one of the things that we discussed is that there have probably been other civilizations that have risen and fallen on this planet that may have achieved a technological base, if not equal to our own, but superior to what we have right now, but for whatever reasons has disappeared into the mist of time.
That's beautifully said and explained, and I must say I read the book and I own your book, and it's quite amazing. I've been in Nikola Tesla Museum more than a couple times in Belgrade. I did enjoy, going to the history and having some connect with the friends. I was capable of going through certain stuff that are hidden background, that they're not on a display. It's quite amazing to see what kind of minds do live between us, and they're digging deeper into space, into universe, and like you're saying, maybe connecting us with the ancient aliens. Mr. Paul, when we're discussing this topic, would you like to add something, or do you have a question, or maybe, comment yourself?
No, Tim's the Tesla expert on that one. but one thing I want to mention.
we know that for sure.
But I just want to mention, we're going to discuss a little bit about star people. Brad Steiger, when I was a little boy, I lived in a haunted house. And as I got a little bit older, I started reading Brad Steiger books. And one of the first books that I read was about star people. And later on in life, as I became an adult, I contacted Brad. I said, I'm a big fan of yours. I learned everything about the paranormal through you. Through him and Eric Von Doniken. Now, Tim. But anyway, Brad Steiger was amazing. He goes, oh yeah, okay. And before I knew it, I was getting articles published into his books. And Brad and I became really, really close friends. And then I met Tim and the late Timothy Beckley. So Tim Swartz and Tim Beckley, and through Brad Steiger, I believe. Isn't that correct, Tim? Didn't I?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Probably, probably. Because Brad and Tim Beckley were really good friends, and then I got to know Brad, through that relationship as well. And it was the same way with me. I grew up, and I always liked to tease Brad, by saying that, when I was a kid, I was reading your books, and he'd be like, shut up.
And that's the amazing thing, because I was a little boy reading Brad Steiger's books. I mean, my neighborhood, the neighborhood kids, we had a tree house in this big oak tree in front of my house in Monterey. And I would go up there, I would bring my Marvel and DC comic books, and I would bring some of my Brad Steiger books. And when Cherry of the Gods came out, I brought that up to the treehouse, while the other boys were bringing Playboy up there. And they go, Paul, what are you doing looking at those comic books and looking at the Brad Steiger book? Look at Playboy. And I'm going, no, I want to read Brad Steiger. Brad Steiger is what molded me. Not any of these new paranormal investigators that you watch on TV, that some of them I work with, but I mean, people come to me and they said, "Did you learn this from that?" I go, "No, I'm learning this from Brad Steiger, Eric Von Daniken, Cherry the Gods, now, Tim Swartz and the late Timothy Beckley." I mean, these are the real paranormal researchers, not the stuff that you see on TV with
Yes.
these ghost hunters and stuff like that. I'm
Oh.
sorry, I just don't fall for that. And most of that stuff is just, it's kind of,
I don't watch those shows.
yeah.
Yeah, and you know me, Mr. Swartz. You'll get to know me a little bit better. Paul knows me. I'm really into the books, into the history, into the research. And when sometimes people, I know people in the audience will also laugh. They mention some movie or something. I'm really blank. I go like, yeah. I'll play it too. Fake it till you make it. You know the old story, but I really don't have idea. I'm like, yeah. But the truth, what is, I like the originality. I like to know truly what's happening, and I like to meet people like two gentlemen that I have here with me today because, like you said, you learn from their books. I'm learning from your books, and I read your books before, and it's my honor right now to have you on my show.
And you know what's totally amazing? Because here, some people, they go to church, bless their heart, that's what they want to do. But I had all these questions from the Bible. But then you look at the Sumerian clay tablets and how they explain things about Enlil and Enki. They talk about the Sumerian clay tablets was written before the Bible. Here they're talking about the flood, they're talking about the Garden of Eden and everything else. And all of that stuff, you look at it, it makes sense. So it's like, like Ancient Aliens, I'm totally hooked on it because it all makes sense. And what's so great about the paranormal is there's all these young people who are very interested in paranormal. I mean, you see all these kids, they talk about it and everything. And just today I got an email because I donate all my books to Bowling Green University Special Collections. And they love my paranormal books, and I donate them to them. And Dana Nemeth, who happens to be the archivist for Special Collections, she contacted me and she said one of your students who reads your books wants information about missing 411. So I gave them some information from information I learned from Mount Shasta about people gone missing over there, and it's just like, wow, okay, here I am helping this kid who happens to be a student at this university with the knowledge I have about Mount Shasta. And also, too, I put in information when I worked at Department of Fish and Wildlife because I would talk to a lot of hunters, and they would say that they saw Bigfoot. And some of these missing cases are sometimes blamed on Bigfoot. So, but it's just, it all comes around in a big circle. And, and one more thing. Tim, I don't know if you realize this.
And I love, being a researcher. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to tell Tim. I don't know if you realize this, but Danielle her ancestor is Count Dracula. And she has
really?
She has a book coming out on Dracula. And I'm getting the book. She's sending the book to me. It's like Christmas all the time. I get books from Tim Swartz.
Yes.
I used to get books from the late Timothy Beckley. I used to get books from Brad Steiger. Nick Redfern, he always includes me into his books. And he's always on Ancient Aliens too. So now I'm getting a book from Danielle. And when Tim finishes his other book, I'll be getting that book. It'll be like Christmas. I love it.
So Danielle, you're related to Vlad the Impaler?
All connected in a circle of life. Yes. Go ahead, Tim. I couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
So you're related to Vlad the Impaler?
Yes, this is another story that we can share. It will be a little bit long actually my DNA that we did. There was a story through my family that lasted for quite a long time, and I understood then why some of my family members were prosecuted and their land and everything was taken away when the communism came, coming to the Europe and everything. But then as we started digging deeper into the DNA, that's what the story became reality. We knew it, but we wanted, of course, you want the fact, right? So it's very important to have a fact, especially when you're talking about something like that.
Danielle, I gotta
But
tell you,
also,
I gotta
go
tell
ahead.
you something real quick. On the
Go ahead,
on the news last week, they were talking about these scientists were studying the stomach contents of Dracula, and they said he was a vegan.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that, Tim?
I did. I did read about that. Yeah.
There you go.
He's a vegan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I heard about that basically through the family stories, and the reason why they said that he actually had a really huge issue with digestive, meat. Especially back home, they eat more of the lamb, they eat more of the pork, less of the turkey, and but it will be more heavier meat and more like a stew, especially at that time, because that would be kind of filling. Even if if we're talking about the castles, but there's Ottoman Empire findings. But he had huge issues with that. And if you take me, I'm the same way. I'm not vegan, but for example, maybe you're a text was saying I cannot eat that because I cannot digest it. I become really sick from it if something is really very spicy or if the food is really heavy. And then my big brother text was like, no, Daniel, don't worry. I'm taking it to the place where it's not going to be that heavy. So it's kind of running through the genes. So I did knew about it. For you guys, it's something new. For me, it's something that already did know about it. But it's nice that you're sharing, Paul. I love that. But when we're gonna take a little break in a couple minutes, and we're gonna before we go and dig into the star people for next half an hour and a little bit, I would like you gentlemen, if you can tell me a little bit more, what do you think really, Doris Dawn would like to know, what do you think about those huge rocks that look like humans or the ETs? Are they giants? Or what are they? What do you think what they could be?
Do you wanna take that first, Paul?
No, Tim, I'll let you take it. No, you're the ancient alien guy. You're the ancient alien guy.
Well, she's referring to some of these rocks that you've seen scattered all over the planet that really do look like that they could have been like almost like a petrified giant. But I mean, we're not talking about something that's 10, 20 feet tall. No, I mean, these things are huge, hundreds and hundreds of feet in diameter, and a lot of them do. They look like that they're and not just people too, but like animals and trees that appear to have been frozen in place. Now, part of me would like to say that that's probably what has happened. You've got petrified giants. My belief is more along the lines that these could have actually have been like ancient monuments, ancient carvings, rather than actual carved or actual petrified giants. From what we know, it would be extremely difficult for any kind of creature to get that size on our planet. I mean, even what we know, because in the far past there was a higher oxygen content in the atmosphere, and that's why you were able to have like dinosaurs that were able to get so big. But some of these things would have dwarfed, say, like Mount Rushmore, even. So I suspect that we are looking at some kind of antediluvian civilization who actually carved these things out of the mountains, and of course, the thousands, maybe millions of years have eroded them to the point where they're just almost like superficial type of shape. Now that there are some what appear to be giant trees, that I think those probably actually were giant trees. But for, like actual giant, mega giant humans, I think it's more we're looking at ancient monuments.
And I totally agree with
What
Tim.
do you think, Paul? Thank you, Tim, for
Yeah.
sharing your wisdom.
No, I totally agree with Tim. I mean, that totally makes sense what Tim was saying. So,
I will tell you something before we go for a 5 minutes break. I'll tell you here, about 2 hours from me, we do have Drumheller. And some of you guys from Discovery Channel and National Geography also come a lot of times because we do have basically, we can say, a real Jurassic Park, because that's where also Steven Spielberg came and picked up all the stories, because we have all the dinosaurs and everything. But we also do have giants that we call them giants.